Another scenario is, this is the more common one in real estate. Agents, you know who you are, you're buying those leads as a team leader and nobody's calling them. And this only happens 99.9% of the time, right? The team leader is upset that their agents are not following up with these leads. They're not calling them fast enough. They're not making enough of those touches for these leads. And in fairness to the agents, we ask them to wear a lot of hats, right? They got to be great at marketing. They got to be great at follow-up. They got to be great at closing deals. They got to be great at showing those homes, managing the transaction. Sometimes as you scale a team, you realize relying on people that can do all those roles is not a good idea.
Welcome everyone to the show. We have a treat for you today. It aligns beautifully with what we're doing here with the new brand and some of the exciting things that we're trying to work on. He's got an interesting background and has had wild success doing some amazing things. We're really excited. Honestly, we were talking before we went live, and I was telling him, like, we're interested in your services also. So this just happened to align perfectly. We're joined today by Gustavo Munoz Castro. He is the founder and CEO of Power I.S.A. Gus, for short, thank you so much for taking the time out today, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Excited to be here, James. I love your show. You really mix it up with a diversity of folks on here, different parts of the equation to help solve that problem for investors. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's as you're going through this in real time, right? And having the real estate background that we have and being investors ourselves, the business it's an exciting time to be in the business, but the business has become complicated, right? There are so many different components of it now. As the digital world continues to give us these different tools, you really have to mix it up. You have to build a strong foundation and understand everything from deal sourcing and the technology that's associated with it, how to properly comp, how to properly identify, how to close. And then once you've closed, is it a short-term rental, long-term rental, residential, commercial? How do you market the assets? And of course, how do you build the pipeline? So each one of those different disciplines carries with it a whole amazing box of tools. So for us, it's been great to take this journey. We have a book club here, Gus, and I was telling the agents, book club has had a huge impact in what we do, but the podcasting is the single most impactful thing that I've done in my 25-year career. There's and it's not even close. The connections that I've made through the show and the things that I've learned through the show have opened so many doors, have opened my eyes to amazing technologies and methodologies and investors and just great people. And once you get in this world, there's like this amazing community of people that are just willing to help. I don't know if you've had that experience as you've grown the company, and we'll get into your history in a moment here, but I was absolutely floored by how many people want to just offer advice and have you on their show. They come on your show, as you're thinking about this, at least for us, we were like, gosh, are we going to be able to, land a guest per week? And we want to have consistency. And when it starts to take hold, you're just flooded with requests, and it's just like one guest is better than the next. So again, appreciate you coming on the show. I want to get into, of course, Power I.S.A. I want to talk about who and what you are and the different services and how you're doing what you do, but your history is really relevant here. So if you could share with the audience a little bit about the background, I think it will give a better context for what we're going to talk about as we move through the show.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that intro. Gustavo Munoz Castro, people call me Gus. Originally from Mexico. I grew up on the border town, right across from San Diego, California, born and raised there. And I speak English like a Californian because I spent all my weekends as a kid over in San Diego. I have a lot of family in the U.S., so I grew up really close to that culture. I went to school in Mexico for engineering, actually. So real estate, it wasn't real estate, it wasn't business, it was software, because I went to school in the late 90s. And if you wanted to be successful in life, it was like the internet is going to eat the world, right? And technology is going to be, we were in the peak of the internet bubble, the first, okay, let's call it the first internet bubble back in the days. Hey, I gotta get into this. This is gonna be the place for me, right? And I got recruited by Microsoft early 2000s, and I went up to Seattle to work full time in 2004. And it was awesome, right? But hey, Microsoft, and this was a long time ago, right? You'll know this, James, but the people might not know. Microsoft used to be Google plus Amazon plus Facebook plus Apple put together, right?
Yep.
Everything came from Microsoft when it came to internet technology, PCs, gaming, browsers, phones. Everything used to be Microsoft.
That was the only game in town, right?
They just owned everything at that point in time, early 2000s. So it was like, it was like joining the mothership, right? Like going to the Death Star, on their side. They're welcoming you. It was a great experience, great company. I became a minor celebrity. Funny story. I became a minor celebrity in my hometown. This guy made it. He made it to Microsoft Corporate. This is awesome. I gave a talk in my high school. So you can get the idea. This is a big deal. My parents were like, through the moon. It was amazing. However, we'll say this: great company, great everything. I was not a great software guy, to be really honest with you, right? I'm a smart guy. I learned fast. I learned quick. I adapted to the company. I started to rise through the management ranks. I became a first level manager, senior engineer, that level. Took me almost 10 years to get there. It wasn't easy. I got there and I'm like, okay, I've climbed this first mountain, made it to senior. I'm a manager now. What's next, right? Because I don't think I want to go the next 8 other levels. I was at a point where there's a 50% drop off. Half the guys going to Microsoft make it to that level. The next one's not 50%. It's like 90% drop off and so on and so forth, right? I'm going, where's my talent at? What am I good at, right? And my wife is the one that really jumped in. She's from Mexico as well, joined me up in Seattle, and she became a real estate agent in 2008. And it was a really interesting time to get into business, by the way. The world was ending, right? Doom and gloom. It was like, it was kind of crazy. And I got to experience that. I met a lot of investors through that market, that, the early short sales, REOs, that whole bit. And I got to meet a lot of folks, because everyone like me was afraid of the market. Oh, the world's ending. Investors took out their pocket, took out the checkbook, and they were like went to town in that part of the country. I'm pretty sure everywhere, but in Seattle it was kind of crazy. People were quiet. It was time to buy. There was blood in the streets, like I say. And it was a really interesting dynamic to learn. I was fascinated by it. I didn't come from a business background. It wasn't like in my DNA. At least I thought it wasn't in my DNA. My wife came from an entrepreneurial background. So her whole family were self-employed, doing commerce, doing agriculture, doing anything and everything. So she's like, hey, let's go into this. This looks interesting. This looks fun. This looks profitable. Let's see what's going on. And it was crazy. My family in Mexico bought a property in Seattle. We helped them through that. It was our first fix and flip. We're doing deals on the side, helping all our friends at Microsoft buy property. As the market started to turn, 2012, in that area, 2012, things got completely different. Like a switch went off. Yep. And that seller's market has been going on since 2012 in Seattle, at least. It's crazy, right? So that's when things started to turn. They said, hey, this is going to go to hyperdrive. This is going crazy. Things are going nuts. I was having more fun in my nights and weekends job, because I got licensed in 2010. Became a real estate agent in 2010, working full-time at Microsoft, 60-hour weeks, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday-ish, right? It was a tough job. But I would find time to help my wife out, go help her with technology. I was the IT guy. Then I was kind of I was a manager. I built teams. I said, hey, let me help you build a team here. And fast forward to 2013, and I said, you know what? A lot of things happened that year. They just gave me the sign, like, this is the time. If I'm not ever going to give this a try, Now it's going to be never. I was 32 years old. So 32, had been a corporate guy my whole life. First job out of college, Microsoft. That's been my life the last decade. And I said, I want to try this real estate thing out. I'm going to take a sabbatical, 6 months sabbatical. Going to help my wife build her team, set her up. And then I'm going to go work either back to Microsoft or some other company. That was my plan, initial plan. And it's been 8 years since that, and a couple months, and I haven't looked back, right? I became a real estate agent. We started our team. And then we started this I.S.A company as a side hustle, a side project to help us and other people in my brokerage. And then that really took off. It went kind of crazy. And now I have 120 full-time employees working virtually in the US and Mexico, where I'm from, servicing, doing this inside sales, lead conversion, appointment setting job for investors, real estate agents, loan officers all over the US and Canada. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. So amazing story. We talk about this not as often as we should, but we're trying to talk about it a lot more now. When we went through this is our third major adjustment, if you will, in the market, 3.5 really. It was 9/11, obviously locally had a profound impact on the market.
Massive.
The 2008 crash had a profound impact on every market. Superstorm Sandy locally devastated.
Oh, there we go. So, true. You're right.
That was another tough couple of years for, again, a number of reasons. And of course, the pandemic has certainly presented its set of challenges. But in those true resets, when you have those true resets across the globe, or at least, the country, that does create a very unique opportunity, right? In that few year period. So we're at a point now where we're with this new brand. Part of that is a fund. We want to be able to backstop our agents' deals, and we're preparing for. We think 2025 is when the music stops, at least when it gets reported. I understand what you're saying. In 2008, your wife jumping into the market at that time, it's a tough time, but necessity is the mother of all invention, right? So as an agent, and especially a new agent, you end up in the short sales and you end up negotiating these packages just because that's the kind of work that's available during that time, right? So you do get a crash course in some of the disciplines that perhaps you wouldn't have contemplated on the way in originally. And I wonder if that was part of the mindset as you got into the investment side. But now you've got, essentially one of the largest inside sales teams, right, across North America. And if you could just take a minute to explain what inside sales means, right? I think that would probably help.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that role, it comes from the software industry, I.S.A, inside sales agent, which for them means, you're in the office making calls all day. You're a telemarketer for real estate. Is kind of essentially another way to call that. And that is the person. And there's two main roles they play on the team, right? It's a single title, but they can play two main roles. One of them is the outbound prospecting role, right? They're taking truly cold lists. They don't know who the hell you are. That's just someone their name's on the list because you filtered it that way. You put them on there and there's 100 people on this list and we got to contact them and give them the pitch, right? We want to set up our acquisition team or the investor themselves. We want to pitch it to them and just make their time more efficient. They want to be attending 2 appointments a day. They want to make 2 offers. Let's say 2 offers a day. They want to make 2 offers every single day. Got to make those calls, got to make those contacts, make those follow-ups, and get them in front of our investor every single day. The outbound prospecting, I.S.A. The other role, which I think is different enough that we actually separate it and we recruit differently for it, is what we call the lead manager role. That is a little bit different because once you get, I think all investors start in that prospecting role. Either they're driving for dollars or they're mailing or they're doing that kind of marketing to those lists. Once you kind of move up the chain, you can market for inbound leads. You can generate inbound leads. through ads, through content, through, podcasts. You can generate these leads a bunch of different ways, but they're coming to you because you're putting that offer out there. You're putting the offer in front of them. They're seeing it, and then they're saying, okay, let's see what James has to say. Let's see, what Cassandra's got out there. It's interesting, and I think I meet that need. Let me see what they can offer me. Those inbound leads, it's a little bit of a different beast. It's different, right? It's different than that cold call. They have no idea who you are. They have no idea what the context is. Why are you calling me? Versus, hey, I'm calling you back. It's a more of a customer service kind of experience. You still got to get the offer out there. You still got to try and close the deal. It's just a way different approach to do it. It's more of a diligence customer service scenario. And the people who do it at a high level are different than the cold callers. They're just different, right? The cold caller, that's a shark, right? That guy's like, back hitting the phone, they're hitting their forehead against the wall 99 times a day to get that one solid lead that's good to go that can make that offer happen.
Well, they're profoundly different roles if you're intimately aware of the nuance that goes along with a cold call, right? And having to basically start from scratch. And it's a special personality to be able to pick that phone up and have that resilience, right? That's one thing. And
grit. I like the word grit. I like that a lot because that's what that is, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it's the hardest thing to determine when you're bringing someone in, hiring, recruiting, training someone, other than getting them on the phone and seeing what they do. That's the only way we found to really measure. You either have grit or you don't. I haven't found a way to teach it. If you found a way, James, let me know, because I have not. You find these people. They've got the grit. They've got the drive. They've got the energy to do that 8 hours a day in and day out. It's impressive.
Yeah, you can't teach it. You either have that or you don't. I completely agree. And then the second role, we call it our lead coordinator. You're calling it the lead manager. That's once there's a vested interest, folks, right? This is when someone is acting proactively and they're calling inbound to whatever the company is. So let's talk about what type of companies are you performing these services for? If we could just run them down quickly one at a time. Let's take it from the top. What type of companies are you providing these services for?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different profiles. We work with individual real estate agents. I like to call them small teams because they usually have an assistant. If you're a real estate agent, your first hire should not be an inside salesperson. You're probably doing it wrong. You probably don't have the budget for it if that's your first person you hire. Usually we're talking about individual agents that have small teams, administrative assistant, transaction coordinator, marketing assistant. They've got they're established, right? So they're generating leads. Either they're prospecting based, which is awesome. I love seeing that when the agents are prospecting based. Even in this market, there's some, and they want to free up some of their time. They want some of that prospecting to be handed off to someone else, and they want to handle the more qualified leads, and they want to attend appointments. That's really the biggest thing for them. They want to hand off some of these activities. Another scenario is, this is the more common one in real estate. Agents, you know who you are. You're buying those leads as a team leader, and nobody's calling them. And this only happens 99.9% of the time, right? The team leader is upset that their agents are not following up with these leads. They're not calling them fast enough. They're not making enough of those touches for these leads. And in fairness to the agents, we ask them to wear a lot of hats, right? They got to be great at marketing. They got to be great at follow-up. They got to be great at closing deals. They got to be great at showing those homes, managing the transaction. Sometimes as you scale a team, you realize relying on people that can do all those roles is not a good idea. It's very, very fragile, right? So the team specialize. They've got transaction people, they've got people that do marketing, and they've got people that help with the lead conversion, which is what that I.S.A. does. They follow up with the database, they follow up with the inbounds, they make the second call, the third call. Agents can make the first call. They're pretty good at that, the first call. Anything above that is like up in the air most times, right? So the I.S.A. makes those additional calls. So we help that, and that can be like a small team to a very large team, a highly specialized team, which I love working with because the I.S.A. goes in there to fulfill a very specific role. Like, great, this guy calls our database, and that's 30,000 people. Go. That's what they want them to do. They have everything else handled. The new inbounds, the prospect, everything's handled. They need the I.S.A. to fulfill this. They're so specialized. They need someone just to call their old leads. That's it. And guess what? That they make a lot of money that way. That's why those leads, they can get a huge return on that ad spend, because they're going to call those people until they buy or die, right? So that's a role that we fulfill on the retail side. On the investor side, it's kind of a similar setup where we work with a lot of small individual investors. And I classify that by, are they making the offers and are they closing the deals? Are they going belly to belly with the owner and going out there and putting pen to paper when the I.S.A. gets an appointment, right? We work with investors that are like that. It's a small team. A small team, they're typically going to be prospecting based. They're building lists. That's the game in those stages of the business. You're building a list. Your list building ability, list building mojo is going to be what's going to set you apart. Or you drive for dollars. I mean, you might be in a super interesting market where you can just go around and find deals, in your car, maybe, right? There's less and less of that now. Maybe that very lucky. But you're usually building a list and you're marketing to that list through mailers, through door knocking, through cold calling. And the I.S.A. is one more way to try and reach out to that list that the investors spend some money on. That's a huge advantage that the investors have on a lot of the real estate agents. They know the value of the data. They understand how valuable those lists are, and that it's 100% a follow-up game to get that. I think that I don't have to convince many investors of that. Agents, another story. It's challenging sometimes to get them to understand that. But the investor can understand. I see investors pay $10,000 for databases. $15,000, $25,000 for a large amount of a large database for an entire county, entire state, right? Because they understand the power of good data, like good, qualified, skip traced, accurate numbers. They'll pay top dollar for a quality list. So that's a big advantage the investors have. So we help them market to that list. As the team scales up, you've got like you mentioned at the very beginning of the show, right? You've got the marketing, the acquisition person. The I.S.A. is there to set up appointments for the acquisition person. As the teams grow, scale, and specialize, the I.S.A. is there to keep the appointments full for those acquisitions people. And it could be one acquisitions person, it could be a team of acquisitions people. I think the largest client that we've worked with is probably like a 25-person team out of the Dallas Metroplex, working all of Texas, but they were based in Dallas. And they had acquisitions people in different offices, but most of the team was in one location out of Dallas. And they had multiple people on the phone, going through their lists, calling their inbounds, texting potential leads, all of these things. And the I.S.A.'s role was set appointments for the acquisition specialist. That was the game. They had to set a certain number per day to keep that team rolling, keep the deal flow coming. So usually the scale changes there, James, but the role is really similar. Get the most out of that list, get the most out of those inbound leads that are coming in, set those appointments.
Now, we covered a lot of ground there. So I think the largest challenge that deal makers are facing today, right, speaks exactly to what you're solving for. The reason that we decided to launch a new brand was we wanted to take the best elements of Casandra Properties. It's a family-owned business. We've worked 25 years now. I was with the company. And there is a homegrown feel and certain elements of the personal service and the personal touch that are absolutely irreplaceable. We wanted to take the best elements of that, but we also wanted to blend it with the technology and some of this more, some of the broader, if you will, approaches that would allow us to scale, right? To scale locally and to scale across the country. The most difficult thing we have found, and probably what does the most damage to a seasoned deal maker, is all of the things affiliated with anything other than making the deal, right? There are the outstanding deal makers. They really are finely tuned machines, and they want to be in their space doing what they do. But all of the things that have to get done in order to generate that opportunity is when you start to see the diminishing returns. And as real estate has evolved over the last 15 to 20 years, we've seen nothing but additional things that you need to do that kind of knock you off that mark, right? To remain competitive and relevant, you have to be out there competing with SEO and with your website and with social media. You have to be out there generating leads from a wide array of places. When I started in this business, we got a book that was this thick, right? When the listings came out, you literally thumbed through the entire
You
book.
could find deals off the MLS. You could find deals in the, I mean, that's when I started investing. Like I open up the MLS and see what deals, which one would cash flow the best. I know that sounds like a crazy term, West Coast people. You could find cash flowing properties off the MLS back in the day, of course.
Yep. And, you know, if you wanted to market a property for an agent, you had one or two places. That was it. You placed your ad, and that was the long and short of it, right? The phone rang, you took the call, and you worked it. Now, as there are so many platforms and there are so many lists and there are so many places that are lead gen specialists, the agents we found as we started to experiment more and more with different lead gen opportunities, they became more and more frustrated, right? Like you said, maybe you get that initial phone call, but they didn't want to set up drip campaigns. They didn't want to make the follow-ups. They're not in that mindset. So the way we solved for it was we created this lead coordinator role, right, which was going to vet stuff that came in before it went to our agents. And we completely took a separate division for our buyer's agents. So we have our seller's agent specialists that they're not interested if somebody calls. They don't care if it's a $5 million home. If it's not the $5 million home they have listed, they didn't want to deal with showing 5, 6, 8, 10 other listings, right? They're focused, and their fiduciary, they feel, is I want to sell this property that I'm marketing, and then this property, and then this, and then it grows. But they want to stay in that funnel. So we're doing now a completely separate buyer agency program, because that's a totally different mentality, right? And those folks are focused on what you're talking about. When the phone rings, what's out there in the market? They're not worried about satisfying their seller, quote unquote. They're just going out and selling. Whatever it is that's presented in the market is what they're showing. Let's talk about the outbound and the cold calling specialists first. I want to engage with your firm, Gus. Do I get randomized people that are making the calls? Is it one specific person that's assigned to my company or my team? How does that engagement work?
Yeah, no, great question. We assign a single person, so it's a dedicated I.S.A. to your campaign. That's the only way we've ever run it. It's the only way to really build expertise in the script and the offer and the area. And usually it's those first 30 days. The first 30 days, they're getting familiar with your value proposition. They're getting familiar with the kind of lists you're calling, and they're getting, used to the area, right? It might be, Hope. They might have never heard the word for Hoboken before, right? They might have never heard the word, you're in part of the country that's really specific names, right? And, luckily it's also really international part of the country too, right? So maybe there's people all over the place. But you want to get some local knowledge. Local knowledge is a huge advantage in this business, right? You have to understand the area, the geography. That takes time. So those first 30 days are about getting that person weathered and understanding your team, your process, your offer, and the geography. But yeah, the only way we found to do that effectively is a dedicated person working on the campaign.
Okay, great. So we have a specific person, as you said. We can kind of bring them up to speed on how we do things, and you can bring us up to speed on how you're going to do things. We work on the scripts and we're ready to go. Now, so over the years, one thing we've done exceptionally well is we recognized very early that data was going to be paramount, right? So we've begun cultivating lists years and years and years ago. We have over, at this point, 150,000 people that we've come in contact with, that we've done business with in one way or another over the years. And we market to them. We do some soft pedal marketing to them, but we've been blessed in that we don't really look backward to the list often. The phones continue to ring, so there's always those new prospects that we're moving forward with. But in this new model, we want to get lean and mean, right? We want to scale now. We want to grow significantly. We want to bring on a lot more agents. And in order to do that, I need to tap into that 150,000 person list. So is this something where you're taking company-based lists that they've cultivated internally? Or is it just third-party lists that are being purchased? And is it just phone calls, or are you doing phone call outreach, email outreach, text message outreach? What does the package look like? And is it internal or internal and external lists?
Good question. It doesn't matter where the list comes from. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think you have to know the scenario. Is this when you buy a third-party list that's, let's say a high equity, above 65-year-old owner kind of list. I mean, that's good to know, because you want to make sure it's accurate, right? You want to qualify the property, you want to qualify everything. It helps to know where the list came from, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to connect with the person and deliver the value proposition. That's the gist of it, right? The intro is a little bit different, or if it's a list of, let's say, probates, you get those from a third party probate list, very different phone call than like a true cold call, right? It's like, if you connect with the right person, they're going through typically a pretty bad time, right? So you have to show up, you have to accelerate the empathy, listening to the folks, right? But again, once you're past that intro, you're qualifying the property, qualifying the owner. I think you want to get to that as soon as possible. And if the list comes from your own database, that is the best ROI, the best equity. That's like amazing, right? So when you send 150,000, I go, yep, you're gonna do well, James. I can already tell, because whoever has the data, the best data is gonna win, right? You noticed this a while ago. This is the name of the game right now. Even the way where like Facebook and Google marketing is going, they I don't know if you're aware of this, they're doing away with their retargeting ability. The technology's gotten too good. People don't want to be tracked. They don't want these cookies and pixels knowing them anymore. So they're recommending, this is coming next year, they're recommending, I hope you've built a customer list, because that's going to be it next year. There is no pixel. There is no automatic tracking and people don't like it, right? Europe is 3-4 years ahead of us. We're getting there. We're getting there. Thank you, Apple. They're going to do away with that tracking ability. Your customer list always has been your business. Now it actually is your business. It's all you actually own. You cannot rely on the platforms to tell you who your customers are. You better know who they are, and you better have them in your database. So yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said. We work with both of those. And we rely, the I.S.A. is at their best when they are doing phone calls with people on the phone, or they're messaging people to get them on the phone. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. You're not going to close a deal over text message. I mean, and again, some people prefer texting. I think it's something like some of our campaigns, 50% of appointments are set over text. Sure. 50%. It's insane to me. It's doubled and tripled over the last 4 or 5 years as we've been in business. It used to be 10%, right? The first time we measured it, it was 10 to 20%. Well, wow, that's impressive. This year, it hit 50% for some of our campaigns. You never even talk to them. The first time they talk to someone is when the acquisitions guy confirms the appointment. That's it. Like, hey, great. Sam from my team, was texting back and forth. I want to go take a look at your property at 123 Main Street. No one had spoken to them since then. So that's the texting can work as well, but you're usually calling them or you're texting them to get on the phone and make the deal happen. Qualify the property, qualify the owner, and see if they qualify for one of your offers. I think that's key. All of those, the only one that I think is, I'm not a huge fan of for ISAs is email, because I think the automation is so good with that. The ISAs really add a lot of value there, unless you have a really well-managed lists where you're throwing out one-time offers, or you're throwing out very actionable emails that people will click on, right? That people will reply to. I mean, that's rare though. Usually email is the long game. It's like the nurturing, you're giving them little breadcrumbs to keep you top of mind, keep them aware of you. Not really great for appointment setting. I think we measured this, less than 1% of appointments we were seeing that were interacted and started from an email. Very small percentage. It's really going to be a calling and texting game. The best use of your I.S.A. is making those calls, responding and interacting via text.
Now, are we responsible for setting up the Twilio plugin, and you guys are utilizing the Twilio
Yeah,
plugin?
the I.S.A. comes in and plugs in like another member of your team. If you've got a CRM system in place, they are another seat in that system. Typically, we set up with the same dialer that you have. If you already have that set up, we can help you set that up if you don't have it. With some investors, we do set it up from scratch. Some real estate teams, we set it up from scratch for them because they haven't used a voice over IP phone system. If you already have that, it's one more seat in that system for you.
Perfect. So VoIP is of course set up here. We've got the dialers. We have a really strong cultivated list, but what we have not done, candidly, is we have not gone out and secured lists from third parties with any measure, and I mean any measure of success. So do you offer guidance on, because we've been blessed in that way where the phones ring and, the team's out there doing what they're doing. So for a number of reasons, we kept the team around 2025, but now we want to significantly grow under the new brand. So this is now really relevant for us, right? Literally, this podcast could not have aligned from a timing perspective any better. So now we want to engage with you, Gus, and we say, okay, we've got our existing list, and we'll work, I guess, collaboratively on a script for the existing list, right? To try and churn the book and generate new business.
It's like a rekindle. We call it a rekindle campaign. Those leads probably have never been called by you guys. They might even know who Casandra is. I have no clue how they got into that list, database, whatever. That's great. That's awesome. You have to just break the ice, one sentence, and get right into it. Like just go into the value prop right away, and try and get the pitch out there to them.
Okay, so now beyond that list, we're talking about scale. Do you offer guidance on the third-party vendors that we can go secure lists from? Is there any advice you can offer on where we should be securing lists from of clients that have had some level of success?
Yeah, and we can definitely, make suggestions. I want to be clear. I'm not like a list building guru. I don't want to, oversell in I've just worked with a lot of people that have been very successful building these lists. And for them, and I think they have an advantage in a way over you guys where their phone never rings. Like they have no deals, right? When you've got nothing coming in, you better work those lists, to the bone, right? So I think in that sense, again, smaller business probably, but they've got to find a way to get some good throughput, some good connections, some good deals out of that list. And I think one of our best cases happened this year. The single investor, one person, it was a one-person team when we started, hired 2 I.S.As in December. This is Austin, Texas, one of the hottest markets in the country, Austin, Texas. Started wholesaling in December. By May of 2021, he was doing new construction deals, like tear downs, take out a 3-bedroom, 1-bath and put a duplex or 2 units on the property, all off of calling cold lists. He had a great offer though. He was able to outbid other investors and even retail buyers because he started just leveling up. Like he could pay more for those deals because he was going to transform them, change the footprint, add square footage. And again, this is Texas, so anything goes, bro. You can do anything in the zoning and everything. So he has an advantage there. But he can really make some changes and outbid the competition. So what he needed was just at bats. He needed appointments because he had a killer offer. He just needed to get in front of as many people as possible. Didn't have the budget for Google and Facebook. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't spend $5,000-$10,000 a month generating Google leads or Facebook leads. Distressed sellers are the most expensive online lead to generate. We're talking about best case, $25 to $30 a pop. Best case, probably going to be $40 to $50, maybe in the area you're in, James, $60 a week. Because it's just that it's a lot of competition. They're expensive to generate per lead. So your cost per acquisition is in the thousands, right? Off online lead generation. You got to be really careful with online lead generation for investors. But yeah, the lists are definitely the way to go. And it can be as simple as your title company. This investor I'm talking about, the one in Austin, he's from Silicon Valley. So he wasn't an engineer, but he had like an engineer buddy. And they came up with some bets. They said, hey, I wonder if we can find people, high equity, a certain age group, certain zip code. And they didn't want to go too much further than that because they had I.S.A. power, right? They had I.S.A. calls, like, well, let's call everyone that meets that criteria in the whole zip code. And let's try and carpet bomb them kind of that way, right? So they took a really interesting approach to it. They didn't come up with some amazing algorithm or some, awesome third-party data provider, title company. But they were really clear what they wanted to do. I think probably what was key to their success is they were able to skip trace it very effectively. They got a really high hit rate on their list. Probably going to be where you're going to move the needle the most when you're talking about building these lists. You can make up the best list ever. If it's poorly skip traced, you're not going to talk to anybody, or you're going to talk to the wrong people. You're not going to actually reach the owner, right? You're going to reach their son-in-law. Like, get off of, I don't know what you're talking about. Bye. So I think that's probably where, and there's a couple of vendors that I've heard over and over again for investors that are probably doing a really good job with that. But there's a lot of people that can do skip tracing at a high level. I think that's where you really want to be careful when you're list building, connecting them to a valid or multiple phone numbers. Try multiple phone numbers per record. That is going to be a key thing for success. But at the end of the day, it's, elbow juice, just, elbow grease, kind of hitting that phone and making those calls, making enough calls to really put a dent in those lists. And like I said, if you got to get an offer, it's just getting you in front of enough people to get that. So this investor did 23 transactions between wholesale and true flips, 23 transactions in those first 6 months with his I.S.A. team. 23. Wow. I was like blown away because he had, when I saw it, I'm like, he was netting $5,000 the first couple of deals. I'm like, you had no money. I said, you were handing these out, wholesaling these. Yeah, he goes, as he grew, he started doing full flips. And the last couple of deals he closed of those 23 were new construction, like 9-month projects, 12-month projects. Wow. He was getting under his belt, but he started from zero, right? So I was very impressed by that. I was like, I worked with a lot of investors, nothing like that. And the simplicity of it, and in one of the most competitive markets in the country, it works, right? It works. I think few people have that. They've got their back against the wall and are going to make it work. I'm going to put the effort behind, making sure that the calls get made, the appointments get attended, and you're always going for that. Again, $5,000 is not much. So I know investors that would throw those deals, hand those off. They're not going to go work for a $5,000 payday. It's not worth their time. This guy did the work and kind of grew from there.
Well, I love the idea that he adapted and went from wholesaling, right, where he's just taking a little bit of a piece of the pie, and there has to be enough room in there for that next investor to step into those shoes and to complete the transaction. But once he found, and it sounds like it was a lot of good old-fashioned elbow grease, but once he found the model that worked on the wholesale side, then the premium and the opportunity there is, once that model works, you do have the ability to pay more because now you become the end user. Right? So you don't have to worry about that gap that you have to get these deals in at X so that the wholesaler can step in at Y and complete the transaction at Z. When you're going from X to Z and you are the end user, there's the benefit of that step in the middle where you step it up. Yeah. So that's really interesting. All right. So we have our list we want to work with you on. We have lists that we're going to secure from third parties. What about Facebook campaigns and Instagram campaigns and leads that are generated through social? Are you acting as an intermediary and calling those leads back as well? Or what is the experience like inside your company for that?
Definitely. And if the teams have the scale and the budget to go into online, online can be great because it's one of the few ones that'll generate leads every single day, right? People are coming through the pipeline pretty consistently. It is 100% a follow-up game at that point. They're coming in. It doesn't mean they're going to pick up the phone that day. It doesn't mean they want to talk to you right away. there might be 5 other investors they're talking to. Let's be real. These, especially in some of these the hottest markets. So you want to get in front of them right away. You want to understand if they're talking to multiple, you want to understand you're in a multiple offer situation. So ultra important to evaluate the property, evaluate the seller, and kind of see what is it that they want, right? They've got a valuable property. Who's going to be able to secure it? Is it just about the number? Is it about the terms? Is it what the hell is it about, right? Do they want it as is condition? Do they want, I mean, there's always something, right? It's not always solely about the number. It might be speed. It might be something else. So, I mean, that's really, really important. I see a lot of those deals come through on the online, that people see it and they're clicking on your ad, they're clicking on somebody else's ad. Let's be honest about that too. So speed to lead is key. You've got to be reaching out to them right away. You want to be the first person in front of them. You want to go belly to belly, because that's where the investors can shine. Okay, get me in front of somebody, and we're coming out with a deal somehow. Right? If I'm coming out, what are the two's coming out of here, and they're going to have a sign on the dotted line. So I think that's really, really important, and that's a function of that follow-up: text message, calling, ringless voicemail, which I'm a fan of. I love ringless voicemail. Well, I don't love them as a consumer, but they're effective. They work, right? You're using all of these avenues for them, and you want to try and get them. And Google and Facebook advertising is very straightforward in the sense that you're just putting the offer out there. Cash right away, as is conditions. Money now, no questions asked, right? Kind of a situation. I will say this about both platforms. Facebook is much more challenging to get up and running because of all the regulations they've got around real estate and about advertising and the kind of language they want you to use. It's really challenging to get your ad out there. Once you get it approved, I've seen people get it approved the same day, like immediately. I don't know how, but they made it happen. Some folks can have to go through 2 or 3 rewrites of their ad or their creative or whatever. But once it's out there, you can get it running and kind of see what kind of results you want. But yeah, definitely. But again, caution for the folks, right? It's the most expensive lead to generate on Google and Facebook. It's the most expensive real estate lead to generate in those. So that should give you you have to have a pretty good process to convert leads before you've got to put thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars into those to start seeing some return. And then it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to start seeing like net positive results, like positive ROI. It's that kind of a system. So you got to be really careful with that, and all of that, all the implications of running a big budget marketing engine, right?
So are you also working with two different lead sources entirely, right? There's the investment play where, again, you put the offer out, cash buyers. And like you said, I don't want to get off on the tangent about deal making, but reminder to the audience, price is often not the determining factor when you're making these deals. It's how you connect with that person and identify with that person upfront. It could be money, it could be time, it could be a myriad of different things. So don't get hung up on.
They might like you more than the other guy. They might just like you
Absolutely.
more than the other guy.
That's right.
I'll take that deal. I'm not going to feel bad about that. Sure.
Yeah. So now let's talk about if you're an agent and you have product that you want to sell. Are you guys working in that capacity? We want to put ads up for specific properties we already have listed that either we've bought and renovated, we want to go to market on, or we're representing our sellers and we put the ads out and we're getting the leads in. Are you also working in that capacity?
Yeah, I'd say that's the majority of the ads that get run that we make calls on. I would say there's probably 2 categories of ads. One is the homes list where you don't have properties. You're just, you want to get buyer leads. It's a buyer focused ad. You're just putting out lists of properties that are backed by the MLS, local MLS. That's it. And people will click on those, right? If you have to craft them a certain way to make it interesting, the best, single, 2-bedroom homes under $500,000. You have to make it interesting for them, or homes with the basement, homes with a pool, homes with something, right? The homes in your top school district around this area. Oh, I'll click on that. So it's gotta be attention grabbing. Click on that list. The other one that we work with, there's a single property listings. Those are great. Again, a lot of these areas of the country, we're strapped for inventory. So anytime someone puts out a property, You typically don't want to put out the price. You want to leave a little bit, behind. You don't want to give everything out there. Hey, property just listed. Attention, neighborhood area. People that live in this area. New listing coming up right now. Take a look at it. It's going to go fast. Yada yada yada. Let us know if you're interested and get more information about the property. Great. They want to click on that ad. Single property ad. In some markets, single property is king because they're so strapped for inventory. In other markets, the home list wins. People are it's not that crazy. You just want the general information. You always got to test out both. You got to test out both because you want to make sure. At the end of the day, they're both really effective at generating buyer leads. That's what you're getting from those. Maybe for the property, but at least for your team and your business, you're generating a consistent flow of buyer leads. Depending on the market, maybe 10% of those are going to own a home, maybe up to 20 in that range. I'd say if you're anything more than that is gravy. Realistically, 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 20 is going to have a property to sell. But you've got to build that rapport. They don't want to tell you they have a property. They know how valuable that is. They might already have an agent they want to sell the property with. You got to play the rapport game. You got to build trust. You want to meet face to face, either at a showing or at a consultation, or you want to this. In some markets, you can run these ads where you run the home list, but it's an off-market property list, right? Wherever that's allowed, that's a gangbusters ad. I mean, people will be knocking on your door to get that list, right? In a lot of these really hot markets, so they want to meet. They will meet with you to look at that off-market property. I only show this list to my most qualified clients. Would you be willing to go through a pre-approval process? Absolutely. Give me the list. Give me the list. Give me more. Give me that, right? So you're going to get these different kinds of buyers, and a certain percentage are going to be double-ended deals. You want them to come clean and tell you they've got that property. I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we see. People assume that they're all buyers and they're all renters. Not true. Not so. That's not backed by any statistic. A good chunk, a third, a quarter, half of these owners in some of these markets are moving up. They're moving up. They're cashing out that equity, getting the next property, moving to some other part of the country because of COVID, retiring, whatever it is, right? But I agree, 99% are going to tell you they don't own a home. Oh, that's true. I'm sure of that. But are you going to build a relationship with them for them to come clean? And that's the challenge.
It is such a relevant segment that we actually put one of our CTAs now is, do you need to sell in order to buy? Right? As people are looking at these homes and they're getting the oohs and the ahs and they're interested and they're thinking, gosh, I need to sell to make this happen. So we put it right out there as one of the CTAs, and we're able to track how many people are jumping from those buyer-based ads to get them in, and then they're looping out to, okay, if we want to list, what does that look like, and what are the services that they're offering?
Oh,
and it's
you're
a
right,
significant correlation.
There's a lot of fear in that scenario, right? Like, how the hell am I going to sell this thing, and then how am I going to buy? Am I going to be homeless for 6 months? Do I have to get an apartment, or what do we do? How do I manage this? I think, if you're going right after them in that sense, you're like calling them out. You better have a solution for that, right? Like, oh, no, I know how to do this. We do this every day. Like, we can manage that and make sure that you're protected. That's a lot of the value that, for example, these iBuyers have. Like the big iBuyer companies, that's one of their ways to get in. Like, hey, we make this super easy. You want a lease back? Get the lease back. You want that? It's all yours. It's seamless, and that's a big part of the value proposition. And if agents can do that, then that's amazing.
So, okay, have you found that on the Facebook or the social media based leads, have you found that a significant percentage of them, when the I.S.As are making that first contact, are like, what are you talking about? We're not interested in this at all. Are you finding that there's a significant number of those leads? Because that's been a frustrating piece of this for us.
I can tell you're a practitioner, right? That's a practitioner question, right? Because this is probably the number one objection with Facebook leads. Because you're right. I mean, again, look at the context of where the lead's coming from. They're scrolling probably on their mobile phone, looking at their, I don't know, friends' pictures that they went drinking last night, their grandkids, whatever, and your ad pops up. They might have clicked on it by mistake. If anyone's clicked on a Facebook ad recently, they might be an instant lead form. They don't even fill any information out. You just click on the ad and it gets sent, right? So if you're having a significant issue with that, then you've got to move away from those instant forms. You actually don't want that. You actually don't want those people clicking on your ad. You want to make it harder. You want less people to come to, not more. That's the challenge with Facebook. It can seem like you want those 50-cent leads, those $1.20 leads. Like, you actually don't want a $1.20 lead. I think it's more worth it to generate a $5 lead that actually responds to you. That's a better use of your time, probably. So there's this concept called long form leads. I don't know if you've heard of it, but you want them to jump through the hoops. And I think that's really the only, so to give you an example, the typical run-of-the-mill Facebook lead, like a lead form, let's call it leads, those instant leads. 90% of them are either not going to respond or they're not going to want to have any kind of follow-up, qualification, or any kind of conversation. 90% typical response.
Yep.
And about 10% of them you can have a conversation with, qualify, maybe even meet for an appointment. 10% average. If you implement this long form thing I'm talking about, that number goes to 20%. And if you're in the right market, it can go to 30%, right? So if you do the math, your costs, because all this, you're doing the same work, whether they're 90% useless work or 70% useless work. Do the math on the technology, the time, and the frustration your team feels. And the cost per acquisition at the end is going to be less, even though you're paying more per lead. Cost per lead is a very bad indicator of anything, right? It's how much does it cost to get the deal? If you put more friction and eliminate more of those, I don't know what the hell you're talking about leads, it wastes everybody's time, your cost per acquisition goes down. We've measured that. It's like it's pretty awesome. You can almost triple the cost per lead and you still make more money because you talk to more people. The cost per appointment goes down, the cost per acquisition goes down. End of story, right?
Yeah, and for if you don't have the benefit of an I.S.A, which I strongly recommend that you do, it really, that's the diminishing returns I was speaking about earlier. Your deal makers get frustrated and they get annoyed, and then they don't contact any leads.
That's the thing. So it's not just that they get frustrated. It's they like, oh, another Facebook lead. Oh, I'm busy. I can't. They don't even call them anymore, right? I'm talking about you have to talk to 9 of them to get to the 10th. They're not going to get to the 3rd one. They're not going to get to the 4th. So now the return is 0 on Facebook. It's not low. It's 0. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah. So the only ones that we're doing now, we put them through a process where they click, then they have to manually input or confirm. Then they go to another screen that says, "Are you sure that you want to submit information?" Right? Because otherwise, it's maddening, and the everyone gets hung up on the numbers. And like you said earlier, the cost per lead and the amount of leads is not what's relevant. It's the process by which you generated the lead. It's having the right I.S.A from a team like Power I.S.A, where it's an instant, it's right away. They're contacting them immediately. You have a phrase you mentioned earlier that I picked up on multiple places on your material, speed to lead. That is the name of the game. If you're not getting back to these folks in the moment, the attrition rate starts to just fall off the table, right? So make sure you're putting them through the paces, really putting them through the paces before they have the opportunity to submit it, and then you've got to get back to them right away. Okay, so I think I've covered outbound side of this pretty extensively. So we're crossing over a bit here, but could you talk just briefly now about the lead manager role and some of the differences from what we've touched on earlier, although I know we kind of did cross over a bit here.
It's a little bit, right? Because I would classify, the way we set it up is we would classify a Google campaign, a Facebook campaign as an inbound campaign, right? And the reason for that is because it just takes the edge off that call. It's a very different to call a Facebook lead than the cold call. I mean, if you don't believe me, try to get your team to do both. Let's see which one they prefer to do every day, right? So very different kind of a personality profile, very different kind of a setup for it. And just mentally, People handle it differently. And I thought it was funny. Gary Keller, who I follow a lot of his content, would always laugh, saying the internet is just another version, it's just a better version of the phone book. He could never understand why people thought that calling internet leads was better than calling the phone book. He thought it was essentially the same. There's something to that, but I think that fundamentally people treat it differently. And I roll with that. I don't argue with it like Gary, right? It's a different approach. So that I.S.A. is different in a couple of ways. It's more customer service focused, right? They have to kind of bump up the empathy as well. And their tech skills are different. For me, that's a big deal because a lot of times, I don't know what it is about the cold callers, but they're not great on computers or grammar for that matter, right? Yep. They're like, get me on the phone. They're hustlers. They want to go into sales. They want to close a deal. They're like, they want to talk to people and like they want to fight on the phone. I mean, that's a thing for them. But do not ask them to follow a 15-point checklist to enter that lead into your system. You're kind of asking for it in that sense. Yep. We've gone to the extent, James, to have like a virtual assistant for our I.S.As to do data entry, like that. In some cases, we're like, it's really extreme because sometimes the disparity on phone skills versus computer skills can be kind of steep, and so that's one big difference. The lead manager has to feel very comfortable with the technology because they're managing saved searches, they're managing pipelines, and their job is to keep your pipeline clean. There's no leads that are, that stick in any stage for more than a number of days. Hey, how did that appointment go, Mr. Agent? How'd that go? Oh, not attended? Well, thanks for letting me know. Let me call them back and get them back in the pipeline. They kick them back to the I.S.A. These leads come back if they're not actionable. No lead left behind. That's what the lead manager should do. They are going to fix those leaks in your pipeline. Where are those leads going? Got to call them back, get them back into the pipeline, get them re-qualified, reset the appointment, or even better, live transfer them to the closer. Like have the closer talk to them no matter what, and not let the time pass. Because like half the time, I always get frustrated when they say, hey, this Facebook lead ghosted me. Those leads are no good. No, my man. I bet you someone with skills called that person and converted them into a client. That's why they never got back to you. They got a better offer. What would you do in that situation? A lot of these ghosted leads, I mean, they're ghosting you because someone beat you to it. I think and the lead manager is to help stop that from happening for you and your team.
Some of the best leads that we've had, our lead coordinator, right, was through live transfer, not giving them the opportunity to get off that damn phone, getting them directly
they're hot. They're there, right? You want to have it, and also you get rid of the I guess the handoff problem. That's a big problem. Handoff I.S.A. to agent is treacherous, right? Live transfer, you're done. There is no handoff problem. You're right there. Like the handoff is 10 seconds, like 5 seconds. Hey, got a live one. He's looking for a home in this area. Boom, get him on there and just introduce them like immediately and hand them off. The most effective thing. I think for our team, I think the goal has been for Facebook. This is just generic Facebook. 10% conversion to appointment. And of that 10%, half has to be live transfers. Half of converted leads have to be live transfers. And that's a solid goal. You should have, and I can teach my I.S.As to do that. You guys can teach, you should be teaching your agents and your in-house I.S.As to at least do a number like that.
Okay, so on the lead manager side, we want to engage, we want to bring in one of your lead managers. Gus, are you going to have the expectation that we're going to tell the lead manager the process and where to look and what to do? Or does the lead manager offer advice and say, hey, I've seen before, here's different ways that we can do this? And are they going to get into that side of it as well? Or is it strictly they're doing what they're being directed to do?
So I think where it works the best, to be really honest with you, is when you've got an established process that the I.S.A. plugs into. That has been the best experiences that we've had, and the likelihood of success and speed is much better. If your things are kind of like sideways, number one, we try to fix that before the I.S.A. gets in there. So we have an onboarding process. You're talking to expert members of my team, my staff, not the I.S.As. They're like, oh, wow, James, you got a mess here. We're going to clean this up first, right? That's the first step. Because we don't want the I.S.A. to have to go and problem solve in that respect. Like, what's the right way to manage this database? So we want to avoid that. Yet, depending on the experience of the I.S.A., they might come in and say that, right? But we don't want to bank on that, right? Oh yeah, they've been through 5 different campaigns. The best I.S.A.s don't change campaigns. We're always bringing in new people, forming them, teaching them, training them, getting them ready. That's another key thing. And I'm being honest with you and your audience. The best I.S.A.s don't become available. You're always training new folks with talent, the raw skill set. They can jump in and do the job. Someone's asked me, give me one of your experienced I.S.A.s. The best ones. Those guys have jobs. They've got campaigns. They're killing it for campaigns. What do you think is going to happen with those I.S.A.s? They're going to jump off the next day? Of course not, right? So there is a level of ramping up and onboarding that happens on the campaign, and that's why my experienced staff you have a campaign coordinator that just manages the relationship with the client in the campaign. They've got a supervisor. They've got a customer success manager that just handles inquiries from the clients, helping out. All of them have done the I.S.A. role, by the way. They were all promoted out of being great I.S.A.s, which is why they're in those positions. And we have a quality control team, also staffed by former I.S.A.s. So you're not going to get, we've got a lot of controls in place to make sure that these guys do a great job. So a lot of it is that we helping control and we can handle. And yes, a part of it is hoping that you guys, or at least helping you guys, get your ducks in a row and have a good business, right?
So, yeah, but without a doubt, I love the idea, and I'm a big believer in, which is why I take the time to go through these processes myself. I've educated myself on each one of these things because as a deal maker, I've been on that side of it, and I've kind of graduated to a different role now where I'm trying to pull it all together for other deal makers that, I've been blessed to have on my team. So I understand and appreciate very much the way you're structured. Let's talk real quickly, if we can. How are you handling time differences and so speed to lead, right? Leads are coming in. If it's not a list, right? So that's easy to solve for. But if it's a campaign where the leads are coming in, what hours are your I.S.A.s available to respond to these leads as they're populating into the CRM? How do you handle that?
Really good question. So we schedule our I.S.A.s that are all of them are full-time employees with us. So we schedule them out for 9 hours a day. That includes lunch break. That includes a couple of breaks. We do not allow the I.S.A.s to be in the seat on the phone for more than 2 hours at a time. You get diminishing results. It's a very bad idea. They're going to be burned out. It's going to be tired. Got to get up 15 minutes, walk, go to the bathroom, get a snack, re-energize, recharge, right? It's not useful for anyone to be on the phone for more than sitting down at the desk for more than 2 hours. Not healthy, not sustainable. That's number one. And they get a lunch break and they get those 2 breaks in those 2 chunks of time. How we shift those 9 hours, I think the earliest we start is 7 a.m. Central Time, and the latest we go is 11 p.m. Central Time. So that usually covers a good chunk of the country, US and Canada for the most part. You're always going to get leads coming in outside of those hours, 100%. I think the latest we would go, this might have been like a campaign out in Hawaii, because we would do like the night shift for one of these teams. Because again, Hawaii is a weird market. You get people from all over the world wanting to go to Hawaii. Yep. So they would get leads literally 24/7. Like they'd get a lot of leads 24/7. So we would cover one of their night shift for them, because we're like 5 hours, 7 hours ahead of them, right? Sorry, I think it's 5 hours ahead of them. So I mean, it's a little bit of a unique situation. But typically we're gonna man that phone, man that CRM from either 7 a.m. at the earliest all the way through 11 p.m. Central Time at the latest. And if people need more coverage than that, we would like do a combination of either 2 full-time people that overlap, or a part-time and a full-time, and then weekend coverage is another request that we get. Very common request. We have campaigns that either run Saturday, Sunday, and then another 3 days. So we'll take the middle of the week off. That's one option, the most cost-effective. Or we have 7-day campaigns. We have lots of those too. We have a weekend person. Right? Okay. And we got a Monday through Friday person, weekend person. But this is another thing that I'm going to share with your audience, to be really honest with you. The best people want to work Monday through Friday. That's just a fact, guys. That's just a fact. There is a stark talent difference between my weekend guys and my Monday through Friday guys. Because a Monday through Friday guy, they got to pay their bills, they have mouths to feed, and they're going to get the job done no matter what. And the weekend situation might be a little bit different. I'll just leave it at that. So, I mean, weekend coverage, you can help with that, but your money's going to be made Monday through Friday because that's where the talent is, and that's where they want to work.
Okay, so you answered both components of the time difference in the scheduling, because these campaigns, something again a lot of folks don't know, if you go in and you stop a campaign for more than, I think it is 36 hours, Facebook restarts the algorithm and you're back to ground zero, right? As you're running these campaigns,
like frequent pauses, they hate that. The algorithm
the smarter,
doesn't like you.
Right, the smarter your campaign will get. So pausing it on weekends, and I'm glad you have a solution for that. It can be damaging to the campaign over the long run. So last question is pricing. How do we get pricing? Because I want to engage with you here now as we scale. I want to be able to contact you and go through this. So how do people find out pricing, and what's the best way for people to reach out to you beyond me to the broader audience?
Yeah. So, well, you know, I don't want to share pricing on the air because they might be listening to this a year from now, right? And I don't want to mess up, but it's on our website, powerisa.com. Take a look at the section on our services, what we offer, and all the pricing information is going to be in there. That's the place to go, powerisa.com. That's also the best way to reach out to us, get in contact with us. We also have a free Facebook group that we'd love to have people join. James, I'd appreciate you drop a link in the show notes. You can join our free Power I.S.A. Marketing Mastermind Facebook group, where we talk about all these things, calling and dialers and lists and Facebook marketing and trends in the industry. Or we're talking about iBuyers this week. I mean, a lot of stuff going on in that group. Love it. Love how people join. That's another way to kind of continue the conversation and learn stuff from what we're doing.
Well, you'll definitely catch me in the group, and I definitely will be reaching out. Gus, I can't thank you enough for the time today. This has been, for me, it couldn't be better timing, super informative. I think the audience is going to get a lot of value out of this one. Gus from PowerISA.com. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing so candidly with the audience. Yeah, this was a great one. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Love it, man. You do a great job. I can tell you're a practitioner. Those are the best conversations. I had a lot of fun. Thank you, James.
Thanks so much. As always, everybody out there, please stay safe.